On behalf of SIC, I would like to welcome and thank all of the viewers and our speakers for joining us today, especially to those who are up really early in the morning. Lucy, Claudia, and Bertha, thank you so much for being up this early to join us today to celebrate International Women's Day. I'm Adriana Usan, SIC's Head of Americas, and I will be moderating the session alongside SIC's Head of Northeast Asia, Michelle Sonnen. Just a few words about what SIC is doing as an institution to promote diversity in an intentional way. We are a signatory to the Pledge on Equal Representation in Arbitration, and our diversity numbers and benchmarks are really improving. Nearly 70% of SIC's case management team are women. 37% of the arbitrators appointed by SIC in 2019 were women. 31% of the SIC Court of Arbitration, two of which are with us here today, are women. Admittedly, there is still more work to be done, but SIC will continue to enhance its gender diversity along with generational and geographic diversity to ensure that the makeup of SIC as an institution matches its very diverse users base, which involves parties from more than 100 jurisdictions across a range of cultures, industries, and legal traditions. Now, in today's fireside chat, we will get up close and personal with amazing women in arbitration from Asia and the Americas. I'm very excited to hear about their personal journeys towards becoming successful arbitration practitioners, the challenges they faced, and their advice for other women. As today is an opportunity for a meaningful exchange and to advance the dialogue, please do use the chat feature and Q&A box to share your thoughts or stories and ask questions. Now, I am pleased to hand it over to Michelle to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Adriana. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us today for this really special webinar celebrating women in arbitration. I am extremely excited to introduce this absolutely stellar panel of women from all over the world. Joining us today, we have Ms. Lucy Reed, Vice President of the SIAC Court of Arbitration and independent arbitrator at the Arbitration Chambers based in New York, or Lucy is based in New York. Ms. Shaneen Parikh, member of the SIAC Court of Arbitration and partner at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas. I'm very sorry if I said that wrong.
You can say Cam. Cam is fine.
Based in Mumbai. We have Ms. Claudia Benavides Galvis, Global Chair of the Dispute Resolution at Baker & McKenzie, based in Bogota. We have Ms. Bertha Cooper-Russo from the Russo Cooper Law Firm based in Nassau, the Bahamas. And we have Ms. Yoshimi Ohara, partner at Nagashima Ono and Tsunematsu, based in Tokyo. Thank you all for being here today. As Adriana mentioned, I know it's very early for some of you and it's quite late for others. So we do express our tremendous gratitude that you're all able to join us for this session today. I'm going to hand the floor back over to Adriana to get us started with some questions. Adriana?
Thank you, Michelle. So I would now like to kick off this fireside chat by asking each of the speakers to tell us their arbitration origin story. So how did you get started in arbitration? Were there any people or seminal moments, that helped you on your path? And perhaps we can start with Lucy, followed by Shaneen, Claudia, Bertha, and Yoshimi. Lucy?
Thank you, Adriana, and happy Women's Day, International Women's Day to everyone. I may disappoint people to say that I backed into my career in international arbitration. I backed into international law through coming upon international cases with a federal judge for whom I clerked, and then I backed into international arbitration by going to a law firm in Washington, D.C. that had 40 cases before the then new Iran-U.S. Claims Tribunal, which was the earliest batch of UNCITRAL and treaty type arbitration. At some point in my career, I turned around and stopped walking backwards and started walking forwards towards what I've done in arbitration. And I think the lesson for today is that luck is important. And I had a lot of luck and a lot of supporters in what I've done, but also you have to take advantage of your luck and use your intelligence and your education and teach yourself what you need to know going forward. in arbitration. We certainly didn't have any events like this when I was a young lawyer, and I'm very happy to be able to help younger women practitioners. That's all I have to say for now, Adriana.
Thank you, Lucy. Can we have Shanine?
Hi everyone, and I'm delighted to be here today with all of you and this absolutely stellar panel. So I also backed into arbitration, to use Lucy's term. In fact, I'm a completely accidental lawyer. I wanted to be a professional dancer or a horse trainer. And the only reason I got into law school was because it gave me 3 more years to dance and figure out what I wanted to do. After I finished law school, I thought I may as well join a firm and see what it's all about. I knew at that time, however, that I wanted to do litigation and disputes. Corporate law was not at all something that appealed to me. And it is after I kind of got thrown into a very heavy litigation around a so-called financial stock exchange scam that I thought, okay, actually, this is something that I enjoy. And then at that time, the first round of amendments to the Indian arbitration regime came about. That was in 1996, when we did a big move from the 1940 Act to what we have today, as amended several times. And I just started reading and following and keeping track. And that's how I really moved into arbitration. And today I can say I'm quite passionate about it.
Thank you,
And
Shanine.
I think that I think is the most important thing for any effective professional in any area. And that is to truly enjoy your job and have some passion about it. Otherwise, I don't think you can really get there.
Right. Thank you, Shanine. And for Claudia, was it also luck or by chance? The same with Lucy and Shanine?
Thank you, Adriana. And delighted to be here with all of you. Thank you again for this very kind invitation. Well, actually, when I was listening to these responses to this question, I was thinking I didn't actually make the decision to be in the arbitration world either. So when I started studying, I studied both law and economics. So I have those two as my undergrads. But I actually thought that what I was going to do was going to be more focused on the business side rather than on the legal side. And then what happened is that my very first job was as a lawyer in a firm, doing something exciting, not related to arbitration, but focused mostly on litigation. And that's the reason why I ended up being a disputes lawyer, to be honest. I didn't make that decision, it just happened.
Okay.
I think I was lucky enough that it is perhaps, in my view, one of the most interesting areas. It's so dynamic and you're every single day learning. You don't have one day equal to the other. So it's exciting. And I developed a passion for what I do, and what Shanine mentioned before about being passionate with what you do, I do think is a key and very essential for your success in anything that you do. So I started being mostly a litigator and then transitioned to become more an arbitration practitioner. I do still do both. I do still litigate in courts, and I enjoy very much doing both. I think it provides a complete view of the dispute resolution mechanisms, and when it comes to discussing potential strategies with clients, I find it very useful. I know that this may not be that common in certain jurisdictions. In my particular case, and then in Colombia, I guess it is more common. So I've been practicing for over 24 years. 15 of those years I've been working at Baker's. And in the last 10 years or so, I've had the privilege of heading the disputes practice in Colombia, then heading the practice for Latin America, and now serving as global chair for the global practice group. So I've had career that I've enjoyed very much. But one point that I would like to add to what has been mentioned before is that I do think that people have been key in my for the progression of my career. Everyone that I've met and that has supported me has been really, really essential, because they have been the ones who have provided me an opportunity to do something else. They've been the ones that invited me to certain teams. They've been the ones that helped me when I've been in challenging moments. People around me have been the ones mentoring me, sponsoring me, promoting me. So to me, people around me have been fundamental in my career.
Thank you, Claudia. So we now have 3 out of 5 people who landed on arbitration based on luck or chance. Would it be the same for you, Bertha?
Thank you, Adriana and Michelle, for inviting me here to represent a voice of the Bahamas and the Caribbean around your fireplace. And I must say that my interest came as a result of my pupil master pointing me to the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in London. And having returned to the Bahamas, I recognized that there was a need to fulfill. And as a result of responding to that need and bringing in other women who were passionate, dedicated, and who remain with me today, we proceeded to go about in introducing legislative infrastructures and institutional infrastructures. And that led me to meeting Lawrence Tay, who in turn introduced me to the launching of Maxwell Chambers. And I, traveling to the island of Singapore, said, well, we can do it as well in the Bahamas and throughout the Caribbean. And that in turn, in 2014, I met Toby Lando and Celine Moulin, who introduced me to ICA. Never heard of ICA before. But in between 2012 and 2014, Meghana was then at ISIT, and she informed the government of the Bahamas that since signing the convention in 1995, we had yet to appoint international arbitrators to the panels. And at that time, the government had confidence in 4 women and appointed us to as arbitrators. And moving along, ICA, after being told about ICA, I researched and saw that Jan Paulsen was 30 minutes away. And he embraced the opportunity to come in and help build the capacity in the Bahamas. So my approach came from one of a builder and building capacity, because we had absolutely no framework to go with. And it was the support of Corinne Monteteri from UNCITRAL and ISIT and ICA with Marike and others coming in and helping us to get where we are today. So that's a nutshell of how I got involved here, standing on the shoulders of many others.
Thank you, Bertha. I remember having a chat with you about this and really thought that it was admirable, and you are a real pioneer in the Bahamas when it comes to arbitration. So perhaps we can also hear from Yoshimi.
Yes, for sure. It is also the case for me as well, chance and luck. And also I would add a bit of adventure. Means, perhaps you may wish to be a bit more adventurous to try new thing.
Yeah.
Talking about myself, I think it's a appropriate thing to explain in this International Women's Day. When I have been practicing law for almost 30 years, and when I was a high school student, law faculty was not for women. So, and I was discouraged to go to law school. I was discouraged to take a bar exam. I was discouraged to become a judge. I was discouraged to become a public prosecutor. The only option available to me meaningfully was to become a private practitioner. And then I chose to become, well, because that was the only available option meaningfully left to me. I just happened to take the bar exam and became a private practitioner. But, you know, around that time, few law firms hired women. So what should we do? I was lucky enough to find this Nagashima Ono. Now it's called Nagashima Ono Tsunematsu, but that was the almost only firm international doing international work having female partner, and they're willing to have me. And the first thing I was told is, you are here to serve as a lawyer, not to serve tea. I mean, you may find it funny, but that was the reality when I became a lawyer almost 30 years ago. So, you know, you have to be adventurous. You cannot accept the status quo. You want to do something different from other people. So that is my tip.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Yoshimi, and everybody. I think you touched on something that's really important, is that you have all become leaders in what's really considered a male dominated profession or male dominated field, especially with international arbitration. Did you ever imagine that you would be a leader in a male dominated profession? And I think Yoshimi already answered this in her case, but what has that been like? What has it been like getting to the top in a male dominated world? Yoshimi, do you have anything to add on to that? Or perhaps maybe we could go on to, we could start with Lucy again.
I think I can add one more thing. So don't take the status quo as granted, and push the boundary and find mentor who is willing to assist you. And particularly in this international arbitration community, it's such a collegial community. Even if you cannot find a mentor in your country, you can easily find mentor outside your country. In fact, my mentor has been someone outside Japan. Thank you.
It's so interesting to hear you, Yoshimi, because I've lived in several countries and worked in several countries. And of course, all of us work internationally. And I'm always grateful that in my generation in the United States, well, it wasn't easy for a woman to progress to very senior levels of leadership. There were not the impediments and the beliefs, if you will, that women in many other countries have to deal with in terms of social pressure, in terms of legal pressure. So I've been grateful for that. I never really thought about, when I was a young lawyer, I didn't really think about being a leader. I get impatient with young lawyers to whom I speak today who feel that they're ready for their first major arbitrator appointment at age 30, and they want to get ahead, because the fact is, the way to become a leader is to be excellent in what you do and be recognized as being an extremely good lawyer in easy cases, in hard cases, in medium-sized cases, and be seen to help other people do it as well. The leadership, I think, obviously you have to balance ambition with hard work, but leadership, you should be asked to be a leader, not push to be a leader. And maybe that's a difference between men and women, I'm not sure, but certainly I think the importance is to show excellence and the ability to bring other people along. And by the way, everyone on this screen knows that being a leader is really hard. It takes you away from practicing, it takes you away from lots of things, and adds a lot of stress in your life when you're responsible for other people's success as well as your own. And there's no point trying to do it too early.
Thank you, Lucy. Shanine?
So I think India is placed between Japan and the USA. And I think what both Yoshimi and Lucy resonate with me to certain levels. I'm a Parsi, a Zoroastrian, And in India, historically, which has been quite a parochial and male-dominated society, Parsis have always educated their women and encouraged them to work. So from the time that I was growing up, I never really consciously thought of the gender gap. I mentioned that I wanted to be a horse trainer, so I used to compete as an equestrian, which is the only sport in the world in which men and women compete on equal terms. So throughout my life, I never thought of the gender gap or that there was any issue. And when I joined the profession, I never consciously thought of myself as being a woman in a male dominated world. It was almost something that crept up a little slowly and almost in hindsight that, you know, I would put my head down and do my work and expect that just because I'm good at my work and I'm diligent and my clients are happy with me, that is enough.
Mhm.
And I think perhaps I should have been more assertive at that time, more confident in myself. I never asked for anything. Even if I felt that I was sometimes being a little unfairly treated. I'll give you a funny story. When I was quite a young partner, we went for a discovery exercise to the opposing counsel's office. He was a one-man show, tiny little office, just his table and one chair in front of it and a little stool filled to the top with papers. And I had gone with a younger male associate. And when we got there, he gave my associate the chair and cleared the papers and asked me to sit on the stool, which was about 2.5 feet high. So my head was, I mean, my nose was at the level of his table. Now, at that time, I laughed a bit about it and complimented myself quietly, thinking that, oh, I look as young as my associate. And it's only later I thought that, I mean, that was clear discrimination that I faced, that he, even though, it was quite obvious who the senior was, it was the chair was automatically given to the male. But the thing I wanted to say was when I'm comparing myself to women that I see today. I mean, my firm, I have to say, my firm is fantastic. We have equal gender representation across professionals. I think, in fact, we may have 51% women. And even at the partnership level, we are about 45% partners. So I think that's fantastic, whether you're in India or across the board. But I see that the women of today are much more confident. And I think that is because they are much more aware. They're not afraid to ask and ask in a nice way. There's no need to be aggressive and there's no need to demand. But it's something that I have learned over the years and I think was not something that certainly comes easy to a woman and definitely not to women in our generation, a testament, I suppose, to my age.
Thank you, Shanine. That's very interesting. Claudia, perhaps you can also share your thoughts.
Sure, thanks. So I think I had two very strong role models in my life, my mother and my grandmother. And I think that as a result of having them both being so outstanding and successful in their own ways, in their professional life and personal life, and being able to accomplish so much, again, in different levels, I think I've always felt that that was also possible for me. So what I want to say here is that I think in that we share somehow the same experiences, again, with some of my co-panelists, just because I didn't think about myself being in a world that is male dominated and that would have an impact in my career. At least I didn't think when I was young. And at the beginning of my career, that's what I thought at the time. And then I associate that to having also these very strong role models, female role models, influenced me very much. I did dream of being a leader in the field of whatever I was going to do, not a leader in the sense of leading a team, but rather being very good in whatever I was going to do, right? And lead by being good in whatever I was going to do. That I did, but not in leading teams. And all this has been a process, a learning process, a very interesting learning. And in parallel, I guess, that I've been learning both how to be a leader, and this is, again, constant learning, but then also being a leader in a male-dominated world and being conscious about that. Because as I said before, in my early days, I wasn't. Now I am, and for many years I've been. Certain experiences I've been through have also made me be aware of the fact that this is an area that is male-dominated. But I think that when it comes to leadership, generally speaking, women tend to be very inclusive. That's my perception. That has been my experience. And I think that inclusive leadership works great in a male-dominated world or in any sort of structure that you may have. So an inclusive leadership style is effective, and the issues you may be facing as a result of certain biases, gender biases, etc., tend to, at least that's what I perceive, those biases tend to disappear somehow, or not disappear, but the effect of being inclusive in your leadership style, which is something that I do think that many women have, counterbalances those gender biases that a female leader may encounter. So yeah, that would be a comment.
Yeah.
Claudia, you mentioned earlier, so in your earlier years, you didn't feel the bias, but it was like more so now. But what why would it be that case? What was the trigger? Why it has changed from previously to now? I think it's quite a reverse, I think, with what Shanine had sort of experienced.
Yeah, no. So what I want to say is that I was not conscious about it.
Okay.
I wasn't aware of the fact that it was there and that it existed. I become aware as a result of certain events. For instance, I do think that in my particular case, maternity imposed certain challenges, and did apply certain perceptions, the people around me, that had an impact. So, and at that time, I started to become aware of the bias because it was impacting me directly. And then later on, as a result of all these movements around gender equality, the fact that we have spaces to talk about these topics, the fact that in a firm like the one I work with, this is a key aspect of our culture. Diversity and inclusion is a key aspect of our culture. So we've been having lots of discussions around these topics, trainings. So I've been in a learning curve to understand everything around gender inequality. I'm not an expert, but I've been learning and understanding and being aware. And before I wasn't. That's perhaps the journey I've traveled.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Bertha, can we hear from Bertha?
Yes, I am from a family of 10. There are 10 of us, 6 girls, 4 boys. And I grew up in a Christian home, very strict disciplinarian father who was a Baptist leader, a Baptist pastor. And so I never had any issue with following the leader per se. However, when I went off, having completed my studies in France and went to work at the High Commission for the Bahamas, in the maritime division, I encountered a dominated, as you would know, in the maritime sector, male-dominated area. And having been told after having studied up to troisième cycle after master's level in France, that the only thing I could have done there was to type, that's all. And I would watch solicitors come in and register their mortgages, conduct businesses, and I could just peek through. And I said, wait, that's when I pursued my legal degree at the University of London. And obviously, as you would know, finding pupillage in London was a task, but fortunately I was able to find pupillage and had wonderful pupil master who now sits in the Court of Appeals at James Digamond. But after I left and returned to the Bahamas, I realized that finding a job in one of the law firms did not take effect. So I had to go and apply all what I've learned from my father, my parents, and start my own law firm. So my lesson here is what I experience in the Bahamas. I think it's the same for women all over. And you will find yourself in a situation where you feel you cannot progress or get a job in a specific law firm. Well, I think it's time for women to step out and create your own boutique law firm. Here in virtual, we could be sitting in a set of law firm or international boutique arbitration firm with women. You don't need to be there physically. So we need to yes, there's an issue, but we have to first de-weaponize the competitiveness amongst ourselves and step forward and say, look, I know Lucy, Claudia, Shanine, Yomi, everyone here, look, let's pool our resources, build, because in our generation, we have to realize that we are the builders. And for those who would like to take our places, they have to build themselves because the work is massive in order to dismantle the barriers that we face. So I think we can do it, and it's within us to step forward. And I must say the report issued by Ika and Lucy, I'm quite sure, will expand, lays out the roadmap in how we should go about it.
Thanks, Bertha. Lucy, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Bertha, for the shout out on ICA. And I do recommend that report on the joint report and communal report on diversity. I just wanted to say to Bertha that I come from a family of only 4 children, 4 girls. And my father was a very well-known surgeon who felt women should never be doctors and insisted that we all learn to type because he expected that we would be at best secretaries in our life. And fortunately, my mother was a bit of a conspirator, and we all 4 of us have our different careers. And the best thing that my father gave me, I would say, besides paying for my education, don't get me wrong, is learning to type. Because when we switched over to personal computing and everyone in law firms not having their own secretaries to boss around, touch typing was about the best thing I knew how to do. So there you go. Life is funny.
Just to connect there about the typing. When I was 14 years old, my father decided to send me to complete high school at Miami Beach, senior high. And I was one of the first group to desegregate Miami Beach Senior High School. So it was my first encounter with racism, actually. But one of the courses was typing, business, typing. And I must say, had I not learned how to type in Miami Beach, I would have not been able to remain or continue to work at the High Commission in London, even after achieving my degrees in international relations and maritime studies in France. It was of no relevance whatsoever to the person in charge. All he wanted to know was, do you know how to type? Then you can stay here. And I needed to stay there to complete my law degree. So we have a typing story, Lucy.
Thank you both for sharing those tidbits. I think maybe I need to go take a typing class, just in case, you know. But no, I mean, I am grateful that how much the world has changed, and you know, I think I can speak for Adriana in saying that we're really standing on your shoulders in our own careers, and really appreciate all the trailblazing you've all done for us. If we could switch gears a little bit now. And
Sorry, Michelle. Sorry,
yeah.
I think Yoshimi wanted to add something.
Sorry, I didn't.
Very briefly, you know, I was inspired by typing. Now I'm, you know, I'm sorry, you know, you want to move the topic, but
no, I don't. Let's stay on typing.
no, not about typing itself. You know, when I joined the firm, when I was looking for, you know, professional position, women are considered to serve tea, you know, no matter your position was. But I'm now happy to serve, and I'm actually serving tea. I mean, and then people started to stand and try to stop me serving because, you know, they want to serve each other, you know, rather than asking me to do everything. So, you know, serving tea was a kind of symbol of racism in the past, but you can take advantage of it, and you know, you can show your willingness to accommodate, and they will return you. So I'm not suggesting that accept the racism or gender bias, but you do not necessarily take a sort of aggressive approach or take a position that I never serve tea. You can serve tea, but you can also at the same time perfectly professional, and people will respect you. So, you know, when you fight with racism or gender bias, simply denying it may not work. You have to, you know, there are some people who have unconscious bias or actual bias, but you have to deal with it, and you have to think about how smartly you deal with it.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I think it's important to try to look at the big picture from both sides as well. So that's really helpful. I had wanted to move on, but then we got a question from the audience. So I would love to pose this question, and then maybe we can decide who wants to answer it. We've got a question here about, let's see. So some women lawyers are really hard on their female colleagues. It is as though when one has made it, then the level of expectation or competition from one woman is imposed on another woman. I personally think people should help others grow instead of view them as threats. Should this not be the case, especially in a male-dominated environment? How can this be avoided? Maybe I could turn to Bertha, because actually this reminds me of something you just said earlier, is that, you know, we need to, and I wrote it down because it was so good. Let me find the language. We have to de-weaponize competition. And so maybe you want to take a stab at answering this question from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. There are situations, and I think you would hear a lot of complaints, especially from the younger practitioners, about women who have achieved their positions and switch on, you know, on those who follow or those whom she should be mentoring. And I believe that for those of us who are senior counsel, senior international arbitrators, we must take the role of being gatekeepers. Gatekeepers in the sense that when we are in a position to influence, to build capacity, we must do so. And we must do so in terms of encouraging women unapologetically. And that's why I can say that in the Bahamas, we have 4 women on our panels, and we are expected to appoint 4 other women on another panel. And I don't want to use the word nasty, but sometimes women can come across very mean, very, very counterproductive and discouraging. And it's something that we have to address, and we have to become more caring all along in a very holistic way. Because I can recall last year when I lost my former husband, the father of my eldest daughter. And in being in France, I was unable to travel there. And so I had to, along with my daughter, organize a funeral via WhatsApp and FaceTime. But other two friends, Justice Ruby Nottage and a dear friend, Dancia Penn, QC and BVI, they checked in that humane aspect that took me a long way during those dark moments. We must not leave that mother or that nurturing aspect of our character in the boardroom, because others depend on us. And so I can appreciate that comment very much.
Great. Thank you for that. Claudia.
Sorry, just a quick couple of...
No, please take your time.
First, I would like to pick up on something that actually Lucy mentioned before. And it's the fact that leadership, actually what it means is helping others, and helping others bring the best of themselves, and helping others to succeed. That's true leadership. That's what leadership actually means. So I guess that once people understand what being a leader actually is, and that their role is actually helping everybody else, then that should change somehow these negative dynamics. Mm-hmm. And second, the other thing that I would like to share is in my professional experience, women have been great supporters, and I've had great women as bosses, mentors, sponsors, really helping me throughout my career. Mm-hmm. I was trying to think what was the common denominator among them. And I think it's the fact that they were very confident in themselves. Like they at this point in their careers, they were not trying to prove anything to anyone. Mm-hmm. And they did understand that their roles as leaders was to help others. Mm-hmm. And I did receive that support from many women throughout my career.
Yeah. I think Lucy wanted to also provide her comment.
I was just going to say that I agree completely with the importance of women in particular being inclusive leaders, and that's certainly the kind of leader I have always been. But there are times when, as a leader, you have to be tough. You have to be tough on the women you're managing, and you have to be tough on the men that you're managing. And I think we would be naive not to say that there are times when a woman is tough that she gets accused of being nasty, or I won't use other words, in a way that a man manager would not be accused. And you have to stand up to that if it happens. And this whole overall question of being a woman leader or being a woman professional in a still largely male-dominated legal and government profession, I don't feel it every day. I doubt any of us feel it every day in a conscious way. But the fact is, I think the real impact is we have to be conscious of it. We have to think all the time about how we're coming across as women, and can't have the luxury of just representing ourselves. I'm acutely aware as a woman leader that the way I act and what I do and what I don't do can be used by other people as judging other women lawyers and other women arbitrators. And that's something that I have many discussions with male colleagues and my husband that most men don't have to think about. And a simple example of that is once in an ABA meeting, a man said, you know, when I get up in the morning and I just put on a suit and a tie, I don't think about how I'm going to come across. I think every woman professional, every day we think about what will people think about me and women by what I put on and wear to this hearing or wear to the office. So we have to live with it, hopefully with some humor and always with inclusiveness and trying to think of ways to bring other women along as well as young men. Yeah. Sorry for the long comment.
No, it's great. You know, while we're on this subject, I know we're talking a lot about women helping other women, but maybe we could get a little more specific. Do you have any like concrete, you know, suggestions or concrete examples of ways that either you've been helped or that you can suggest that we help each other? And maybe we can hear from Shanine. I think we haven't heard from you in a little bit to shed some light on that.
Yeah. So um, I'm always hoping that we get to a stage where gender does not matter at all, and it is only merit. Um, I tend to focus only on merit, and I'm gender agnostic, but I recognize that being so is almost a privilege, and that very often I have to make the effort to perhaps dig a bit deeper. As I said, um, a lot of my firm gives us a place where men and women are treated equally. So I think that helps things along. I recognize in the profession, though, particularly in India, that there are very few arguing female counsel, and even fewer judges, and even fewer arbitrators. So I think there is where I need to be more conscious, and I think perhaps women need to be conscious that the disparity exists even if you or your immediate surrounding are not facing it on a day-to-day basis. And maybe it is time that women need a bit more of a leg up than their male counterparts do. And perhaps by being, as we're all speaking, I'm just thinking that maybe being gender agnostic is not the stage at which we can afford to be right now. But I also just wanted to say one other thing, that I've also found sometimes that being a woman can lead to a situation where it's easier to impress. I've had so many people come up to me and say, it's so lovely how confident you are. And, you know, I mean, it sounds funny, but women can strut more than their male counterparts do. So that's the flip side of what Lucy said about, women can sometimes come across more aggressive, but you can use the tools that you have with you to also leverage, I think, something that comes with it.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much. Anybody else want to give some thought as to what specifically we can do to help other women, or maybe just some specific examples of things you've experienced in your own careers that you want to share?
Well, just to share a few of the things that I guess that we've been discussing for the last few years, or during the last few years in the industry. I guess that the current campaign for International Women's Day, Choose to Challenge, is a good mechanism, right, to be active and do certain things that would support other women in the industry. So challenging teams that have no women, or challenging teams that have no women in leadership positions, challenging the lists of arbitrators that include no women, challenging potential promotions that include no women, challenging panels that have no female speakers. Mm-hmm. And then in doing so, in challenging, we're basically asking the question. We're asking the question as to, are there female colleagues that could actually be in that list? Are there female colleagues that could actually be promoted? Let's look a little bit more. Let's go back and find out if we do have female colleagues that would be able to take the role. Can you hear me well?
I can. Right. Yeah, we can hear you well. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. My connection is not that great this morning.
So you're coming through great. Yeah.
So I think that this theme is actually great, because it puts us in a place where we can moving to action by challenging. And I think that's a good way of supporting women in the industry. It is specifically in my own experience, I've supported colleagues to continue developing their career and actually be promoted to partners when they are in maternity leave, for example. And it's just something that shouldn't impact, right, your career development. If you really, if that's what you want to do at that stage in your career and you have the skills and you've done everything that you need to do to get promoted, then why not? It doesn't really matter if you're pregnant, if you're on maternity leave, if you have a small child. So I've supported that just by way of example of something concrete that we can also do with respect to those biases that sometimes prevent us from taking those type of decisions and questioning oneself, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia. I think in relation to that, I wanted to ask a question that was asked by a male viewer with us. And that question is, what should male arbitration stakeholders be doing to help promote gender diversity in a sustained way? Anyone want to take a stab, Lucy?
I think as Claudia just said, the right answer to that is in the pledge. And that is for men and women alike, but especially men, maybe to think longer and harder about identifying women to be appointed as arbitrator, to have leadership positions in the institutions and the law firms, and get past the initial reaction of, oh, here are the 5 best people, particularly if they all happen to be men, to think harder. I won't go into it now. I have my doubts about mentoring and whether it's as effective as it could be, but I am mentoring a group of women for the American Society of International Law, and I assign each of them for every session that we do to tell me 3 to 5 things they have done in the last month to support another woman in a role. Concrete things. It can be small, medium, like or that, large. Yeah. And it's thinking longer and a bit harder about what more we can do. And I think Bertha in particular, I'm very impressed with everything you've been through, because they're not little things, they're big things that you have achieved and have helped other women achieve. And so let's have men help us do it. What's so hard about it?
Thanks, Lucy. I have 2 questions here. They're related, but now asked by female viewers. So, do women make better leaders than men? And the other question is, in your professional opinion, do female associates make better lawyers than male associates?
Well, I hope the answer to the second one. Well, and the first one, but
probably Yoshimi. Do you want to take a stab at it, or anyone actually?
Sure. Well, it matters of style. I don't think, the quality of a lawyer depends on gender, of course. And, gender doesn't really dictate the style of lawyer, style of practice either. So perhaps you should feel more free from gender, and if you are serving to your client, just put client first. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to consider the work-life balance at the same time. Yeah. But in relation to client, for example, you put your client interest first, and then you come up with your own style. So it doesn't, in my view, gender doesn't really, dictate the quality of lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Yoshimi.
Actually, Eddie, before you go to the next one, I kind of have just a quick follow-up comment / question to Yoshimi on that. Regarding style, I think one thing I've personally heard, and I know others have heard, is this, that women lawyers are not aggressive enough, and particularly women disputes lawyers are not aggressive enough. Yeah. And I just wanted to hear, your thoughts on whether, that is a genuine, I don't know, to me, sometimes it comes off as being, well, now you're just playing into what the the idea of a lawyer is because of what you've seen on TV, the aggressive man arguing in the courtroom, whereas like maybe that's not necessary to be an effective lawyer. And I just would like to hear your thoughts on that, because we were talking about style and if there are any gender differences there.
Yes,
Can I go on?
Yes.
I actually think aggression is overrated. And particularly, I think in the international arbitration practice, aggression has its place and it has its time. I actually find that men are often more aggressive and can come across as being arrogant and pompous. There are fewer arguing women counsel, so I have fewer to base it on, but generally, I don't think women come across that way. And there's a fine line between aggression and being assertive and confident. And I think most women that I've seen in the positions that all of you are in have found that fine balance. And that is why they are respected, and that is why they are leaders. And of course, I also think, and that is to echo something slightly that Lucy said, that women cannot get away with it with the same tenor and tone that a pale, male, old, stale might do. So, but I think women can be very effective with just a quiet, steely confidence about them. And I've seen that over and over again.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shanine. Lucy, yes.
Just one thing to say. No, I don't think that women make better lawyers than men, or arbitrators than men, or better associates than men. But I do think that having a mix of men and women and nationalities and ages, all those components, ethnic, of diversity, make for a better, fairer, and more fun workplace and hearing room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Claudia.
I just want to briefly support that. I'm also a great fan of, first, gender equality. That's what I think that I really support, gender equality. And it's because both men and women bring great things to the table. It's fantastic to have teams that have both men and women, and then diversity in a broader sense as well. People from different generations, different backgrounds, different nationalities, all that only adds to have a much better result. I totally support it. But yes, I do think that gender equality is the key, rather than thinking that one is better than the other. That we all bring to the table, we all add value. What we need to have is that gender equality.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claudia. Sorry, Bertha, yeah?
Yes, gender equality and not just being a token. That is something I've experienced that, and once, I should say. And it's not a pleasant situation to be in, just tick, 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 because it's like being imprisoned. Because with women, I believe there is a difference in style, and lack of so-called aggression, or, well, like Shanine said, there's it's always misinterpreted for women. When you're assertive, you're viewed as being aggressive. And that is usually tied to, like they say, persons from the African diaspora or from Africa coming across very aggressively, but it's being assertive. But at the same time, the fact that one is very calm and collective doesn't mean that one isn't dingbat as well. So you cannot misinterpret a woman, because if we are there, trust you me, in terms of ADR sitting on a panel, we have the solution. Because when it comes down to deliberating, we just can't say, well, I am a woman. You have to perform. And so, like with Yuhami, for her, it was serving tea. When I did my pupillage, it was serving coffee. But I had a laser focus objective, and that was to complete my full pupillage. And well, I eventually ended up being a door tenant, but we have to be very focused when faced with adverse situations because we are on a journey, and always remember that we have the solution. And I like to just quickly say that I've participated recently in a symposium with the OECD and the African Union, and they did an overview of the economies, sustainable economies in Africa. And the only country that was able to survive the COVID-19 was Rwanda. And when you go into Rwanda and you will examine that 50% of its parliament consists of women. Now you would want to know, were they just token? No, because I believe that we bring wisdom, we bring another angle that is needed on panels and needed another facet in terms of policy making. So that's what we say in the Bahamas, my 5 cents.
Thank you, Bertha. We're unfortunately going over time, but we have the benefit of having with us very inspiring women. And I just wanted to ask this final question for the benefit of the viewers as well. So being where you are now today, if you could travel back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would you say? And perhaps you can go quickly around the room. Who wants to start? Okay, Janine.
I think I would have been more assertive, not expected that keeping my head down and just doing work would be seen. But as I said, I think that has changed, and that has changed not just for women, but I think it's almost a generational thing. The kids that come out of college today are much savvier in every which way than I think I was, or maybe I was an exception to that rule. But definitely, I would have put my head up, I would have put up my hand, which I never did before. And I think that could have helped. It wasn't as if I faced barriers all the way. It was my own diffidence that I think perhaps slowed things down for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Shannon. Who wants to go next? Perhaps Lucy?
I think, that question always suggests that we would do something different. And I'm not so sure I would have done things differently. I think I would have reassured myself with more confidence to remain as open as I was to different opportunities and to step off the track of, law firm partnership and take different positions in the international world, not maybe have worried about it so much. And I think I would have also reassured myself to be patient, that you can't achieve things just by sheer willpower overnight, because if you do that, you tend to leave other people behind. So I would have also kept up my skills at tap dancing, frankly, because I think it would be fun.
Thank you, Lucy. Bertha?
I would have applied more of the book of Proverbs, wisdom, 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 wisdom. That sums it all up.
Thank you, Bertha. Yoshimi?
Yes, I think I have been, aggressive enough to pursue, to overcome all the hardship. But I would say that, perhaps I shouldn't have, I didn't have to worry too much. You just, if you think there's a cause, you just do it rather than worry about or concern about how other people will view you or whether you are going to succeed. So long as you have a good cause and you have a passion, you can just pursue without so much fear. And you will. And one tip I would like to share is always find fun whenever you are in a difficult situation.
I like that. Thank you. Claudia?
Right. Well, I guess that my recommendation would be take risks. I think that sometimes we are hoping to be perfect before we take the next step, that we are 120% ready before we take the next step. And I think that prevents us from moving our career forward. So I think that it's my recommendation there would be, if there are opportunities to do things that you're passionate for, that you want to achieve, take those opportunities, take risks, and it will be fine. You're going to do great.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for all of your really, really helpful and truly candid insights. I think, I personally learned a lot today. I think Adriana did as well, and I'm sure our viewers did, especially the young women in the crowd, but then also our male counterparts and how they can help, pursue gender equality as well. Thank you also to the viewers for joining us, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, your time. We're just really glad that you all could be here. We're going to go ahead and close this session, but please do join us for future SIAC webinars. We've got a Why SIAC webinar coming up next week. You can register for that on the SIAC website, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.